Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Count. I am Barbara Sellers Young from the League of Women Voters, bringing you this public informational voter service program. These 2020 general election interviews are made possible through Capital Community Media via remote technology and in collaboration with the League of Women Voters of Oregon and Marion and Polk counties. For this race, all candidates were invited. The questions were developed by League of Women Voters, AAUW, Salem City Club, and neighborhood associations. The candidates did not receive the questions ahead of time. The candidates were, however, asked to prepare a 3-minute statement about themselves, their qualifications, and their vision for the office. I would like now ask Sean to share opening remarks.
Thank you. I am running for House District 23 in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, primarily because of the incumbent's record to date. When I started my campaign, it was out of frustration regarding his willingness to abandon his post, leave legislative work undone, and basically work against the common good during every session. Unfortunately, several of those bills, had they passed, would have directly addressed issues from fire management to the parking of oil-laden train cars all up and down the district during fire season, and much more. However, I feel that we all understood that something more malevolent was brewing under the surface, and COVID, for all its pain, has a silver lining. Namely, it's exposed the economic and racial injustice that we've felt always was under the surface, and the hypocrisy that we've all felt, and the soft underbelly of those people spreading those hypocritic messages. That said, I believe we have a unique opportunity as a group to truly move the needle for the betterment of our district and our state. And my approach is to bluntly address the issues we face and use that approach to remove the oxygen from the culture war fires by addressing every single issue, from guns rights to abortion, and coming up with a negotiated truce on those issues. As a trained scientist, a retired ER doc, and a businessman currently serving as president of a telecommunications company, I feel uniquely qualified to deal with today's challenges and to help set the stage for tomorrow's opportunities. And I'm here asking for your help on that path. It would be forever appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Our first question you already alluded to, and it has to do with the infrastructure of Oregon and the current situation we've just been through with the fires and the forest management. What are your specific ideas about how to address the future so that we don't face the same situation we faced this last 2 weeks?
That's a wide-ranging question, actually. I'll preface this by saying that in this district, I actually understand why there was pushback against the climate change plan. There was actually significant pushback from environmental organizations as well that saw it as discriminatory in the people that were unfortunately going to be affected by where those credits were spent, the tax credits, allowing further pollution. It was basically a way to continue to pump pollution into underserved and already socially distressed areas. I would have pushed back for that reason. And I also would have pushed back because there were some really significant, in my estimation, problems with the way that the system is going to be set up, managed, and a very open-ended process that was going to be guided by agencies that did not have oversight that were setting the rules. That, however, is not to say that I do not believe that climate change is a dire threat or that our state in particular is very well positioned to deal with it, not only just for our benefit, but for the benefit of the world in the whole. Towards that end, I have been evaluating a program that would actually be revenue neutral, perhaps even a revenue enhancer and a job enhancer for the state of Oregon to create a common market that will partake of carbon tax credit markets throughout the world, and especially through California, in a way that we do not have to manage the carbon tax credit. We do not have to get into the middle of the bureaucratic mess, but we can definitely bring benefit to the rest of the world. Oregon grows trees. Trees sequester carbon. We are in a very unique position to take advantage of that economically, as well as bringing in tourist dollars. So indeed, just on what we've just seen, that would be my approach. And I think that we could do a crash program to actually start that and accelerate it beyond the timeline that was presented with the recent cap and trade bill.
Thank you for that answer, John. Can I ask you to expand a little bit more on specifically how you would deal with forests and forest management in terms of fires? Because there's a lot of suggestions that come out of the woodwork about what could be done. So what would you specifically do in relationship to preventing forest fires in the future in an era of climate change?
So, my background has been in a lab or in a physician's office or in a telecommunications boardroom. I would never profess to understand the forest better than someone that lives and works there. And that's why part of my climate change plan would actually, as part of that jobs benefit package, create a system that would allow people to transition from logging and caring for the forest with that in mind to actually caring for the forest with the eye of conservation. That particular portion would be managed by the people that know that forest best. So if they're carried into this program, the expectation would be that they're going to be caring for it based on the expected volume board feet of timber that were available, the growth, their ability to increase carbon sequestration, and if they felt that it was necessary and thinning was necessary in order to optimize that, they would have that authority to do so. I think we need to trust the people that know the forest the best. They've lived there.
And how do you think that is related to the maintenance of state parks?
That's actually a little bit tougher because that's crossing jurisdictions. I do think that aspects of this program, if we start to learn how to manage private forest lands, could certainly overlap into the state parks.
So the next couple of questions are related to the issues in and around the current virus and its transmission. How would you address school building design or redesign to ensure distancing requirements, airflow, providing instruction for both K through 12 and higher education?
That unfortunately is going to require a rather significant capital investment to be able to do it correctly. I certainly understand the problems associated with distance learning. It's very much exposing, going back to my telecommunications background, the disparity in broadband service access, which is now becoming an economic detriment. If you have it, you're ahead. If you don't, you're behind. So I do believe that we do need to get back into the actual physical building in order to rectify the disparity because it will not be handled on the technical front anytime soon. Once you get into that building, I would anticipate actually rotating classes through much larger venues. You would get away from smaller classrooms. It would become more like a large gym atmosphere. In those areas, you can actually control airflow better, ventilate better, you can filter better. You can also appropriately distance people. That, unfortunately, is going to cost a great deal of money. And I would say that this particular pandemic is not a one and done. If you look back historically, and certainly given what's happened with population growth and further encroachment on once wild areas where these zoonotic vectors come from, so viruses transmitting from species to species, this will increase. We've already seen several outbreaks in the last 10 years, and it's increasing in frequency every decade. So we do need to make this capital investment in our schools. This will be a continuing issue for us. It is time to get ahead of it, and it's a dollar well spent.
And related, not directly related, but related to the current virus situation is how would you deal with the issue of homelessness and evictions that actually make people homeless or homes lost to fires and under the current situation?
That one, unfortunately, is also multifactorial. Going back to the ER days, I found that there were very recurrent themes in the issue of homelessness. So apart from simple evictions or simple is probably not the word for it, but apart from evictions and destruction from fire, we do have an underlying homeless issue that unfortunately will not be dealt with until we start dealing with the mental health problems that are currently underfunded and the people that are undertreated as a result. That, by and large, in combination with substance abuse, was the number one factor that I saw in homelessness in the emergency department. Taking that a step further to the economic distress associated with the pandemic, we do absolutely need to set up a fund that allows the government to pay the landlords or the property owners directly, bypassing the person in general, or the person that's affected, I should say, so that that money flows and can be tracked and audited. That is a public good. That also would fall well within the budget capabilities of the state and certainly the nation if we were to extrapolate it out. In my mind, if we do not do that, we will see a burgeoning problem in increasing economic disparity and distress, not just in the state, but in the country.
Thank you very much for those answers related to COVID. Now, which comes to the bigger issue that's related to all of those. Passing a balanced budget, considering recent events, will be a big task. What will be your guiding principles as you make budgetary choices?
First off, I do feel that this is a great opportunity to revamp the budget system for the state. Not necessarily the funding, but the way that we address the funding, the state finance once the money comes into the coffer. Items like the general fund, agencies that are basically subsisting on fees with I don't want to call it a lack of transparency, but it is difficult to trace. Those are all problems that feed into difficulties with understanding where to put our money, where to prioritize our spend, and most certainly who to cover first as this unfolds. In my mind, we actually need to revamp that in order to have a chance at reforming PERS, or funding PERS, I should say, and also to have the ability to now allocate funds where we see fit. So until we fully understand where the money is going, how it's raised with the various agencies, put it in a pool, we're not going to be able to move ahead. As far as my priorities and the spend from that pool, obviously, the first one would be public health. Until we address the pandemic, we will not see economic stability. That would be number one. Number two, schools. We cannot have a generation of children that are not adequately educated, and we can't have parents who are trying to go back to work that are doubling as substitute teachers. So schools would be the secondary spend. Those would be my top two budget priorities.
So when you look at your community that you're directly serving in terms of the position you would hold with House Representative 23, what are the major issues and for that community?
Indeed, we are a poor district. We have some transportation and infrastructure issues here in the district as well that further degrade our economic prospects. We also have obviously a heavy agricultural district, forestry district. The agriculture right now appears to be rather stable. The markets for the grass seed in this area appear to be holding steady, although they are off of their highs. They are now in historical average range. However, I do see that there's going to be a problem coming from that. Because of where the current grass seed is sold, those markets are not necessarily as stable, and that will have a cascade effect in this area. So I do see problems on the agricultural front. As far as timber is concerned, that's actually improving to a degree, just because of the demand associated with home improvement projects as people are staying home, and most certainly, oh, bless you, and also most certainly as we see issues in the South with hurricanes, plywood comes from somewhere. So that is actually going rather well. However, I do have a rather significant problem with the amount of corporate timber interests that receive significant tax breaks from the state of Oregon, and that allows them, to turn around and take money that used to come into local municipalities and actually push it into Wall Street. I would propose an absolute moratorium on increasing corporate forest buys in the area. I would create a tax incentive program that would allow local foresters to purchase that land. And tying back to the climate policy, I would also allow them to partake of that if it was in their economic interest. That is how I intend to address some of the economic issues that I see unfolding in this district.
Thank you very much, Sean, for your thoughts and for your thorough rendition of your ideas about how you would serve in this position. I also want to thank Capital Community Media for their time and expertise in creating this program and making it available across the state through YouTube and Vote for 11. Thank you, the public, for watching. For more information, including dates, registration, candidates for state and local areas, and ballot measures information, please go online to votefor11.org. You have until October 13th to register to vote, with ballots being mailed to you beginning on October 14th. November 3rd is Election Day. Please remember that postmarks don't count. Elections matter and make a difference to all of us. So remember to vote for that old saying, because your vote counts. Thank you.